Hello and welcome to the North Coast Journal preview, where we take a look at the stories being covered in the current edition of the North Coast Journal. I'm your host, Dave Frank, and I'm joined this week by Todd Greenson, news editor, and Jennifer Fumiko Cahill, arts and features editor at the North Coast Journal. Welcome, guys.
Hey, Dave.
Hi, Dave. How you doing?
I'm doing better. Sorry I abandoned you guys last week. I was under the weather, so to speak, and just couldn't make it, but I'm back on the mend, so it's good to be back.
Glad you're feeling better. Matt stepped in for you, but it's nice to have you back.
You rock, Matt. Thank you very much. Producer, we appreciate you in a big way. Thad, why don't we just dive right in? Why don't you tell us what is on the cover of this week's North Coast Journal?
Yeah, so this week is our annual Cannabis edition, our Cannabis issue. So it is filled with cannabis news and content and lots of cannabis ads. And I should say a really gorgeous cover design by Renee Thompson that is just really lovely.
Very cool. So the community will be decorated. All the North Coast Journal newsstands will have this really cool art people can check out.
Indeed.
I'm sorry to say it does not glow in the dark or anything. I know.
Not so trippy, but still cool. I get it.
Yes,
that makes sense
exactly.
to me. Very nice. All right, awesome. Well, Thad, why don't you tell us what you're covering this week on the news beat?
Yeah, so this week I have a long, complicated story about the Cannabis Reform Initiative that has, as I say in the story, has put the entire cannabis industry on edge in a really big way. So this is a voter initiative that has gathered enough signatures, more than 7,000, to qualify for the March 5th, 2024 ballot, the next presidential primary. And if passed, it will dramatically overhaul Humboldt County's cannabis regulations.
Gotcha. So I know in the article you did a little bit of the background history for folks to kind of give them context for what the current regs look like. But I think, as you stated, there's a pretty common belief across the community, no matter what your opinion is, everybody seems to agree that the current regulations need some tweaking. But this is not that, right? This is something very much different. Can you tell us a little bit about sort of the history of where this came from and what it basically how it's different from the current, not at the granular level, but just for starters, how is it different from the regs that are in place now?
Yeah, so as you said, that the cannabis regs in Humboldt County have been evolving for 8-10 years now, and going through various iterations, and I think, as you said, and as I say in the article, nobody is entirely happy with them. That there is certainly the cannabis industry feels like they are overly restrictive in certain ways, not so much as far as cultivation size and stuff, but there's just lots of hoops and lots of red tape. And it can be a pretty long, arduous process for them to get permitted. Meanwhile, folks in certain communities in Humboldt County feel kind of unduly inundated with cannabis farms. One of the things that the regulations wanted to do was move cannabis farms out of the hills, out of kind of the far reach, off the grid places, and move them closer to communities. And there's very good environmental reasoning behind that, of mitigating the impacts of the farms. Of course, when you do that, it means that these communities are going to have added impacts, though, and so it tends to be because of a preference the regulations give to grows on what's called prime agricultural lands. There's certain communities that are kind of surrounded by those, and I'm thinking like Honeydew and some areas of southern Humboldt that now have a lot of farms that have clustered up. And so there's a cumulative impact there. And then there's just the average person who maybe doesn't really care that much about the cannabis regulations until a farm is going to move in close to their house or close to their community, and so that's very much the case, I think, with where this initiative came from. Not to say that these folks didn't care about cannabis regulation, but it was not a primary concern of theirs until somebody proposed a 40,000 plus square foot grow up by Neyland, so almost a full acre. And a group of Neyland residents were just really concerned about this farm's potential impacts on everything from traffic and road conditions to groundwater and just even community safety. And so they held a big town hall style meeting at Neyland School. A couple Humboldt County supervisors were there. Planning Director John Ford was there. By all accounts, it was fairly contentious, and there was lots of kind of hand-wringing about the current state of things. And this group walked away just totally unimpressed and unsatisfied with the government response, and then realized that a lot of that was due to the current regulations. And so they set about meeting with other folks with similar concerns from other neighborhoods and stuff like that. And they did some initial outreach to some folks in the cannabis industry and to some environmental groups, and then went back and wrote a 38-page initiative with the help of a lawyer from San Francisco. And proceeded to start collecting signatures. And I think one thing that I want to point out is that, I think regardless of what folks think about the ordinance, the initiative itself, what it would do to cannabis regulations in Humboldt County, maybe even the motivation behind doing it, it's unquestionable that these folks put a lot of sacrifice into doing this. They spent a lot of their own money to hire this lawyer from San Francisco to pay for kind of the infrastructure of this signature gathering effort. And then the signature gathering effort was not paid professionals gathering signatures. It was a bunch of volunteers. And so a lot of people put a lot of time and a lot of money into making this happen. And we're successful in getting this to qualify for the ballot.
Wow, so there's a lot there that, this was a response, like some community group got together and really did actually prepare an alternative system for the community. But now I guess there's an element of this that makes it, once it qualifies, that there's going to be a vote on it, and then it would take the effect of law because it would modify the county general plan. Can you tell us a little bit about that and a little bit about how the county planner responded to that aspect of it, the burden on the county if this does end up passing?
Yeah, so I mean, first of all, this is absolutely going to be on the ballot. The only way it's not going to be on the ballot in 2024 is if the initiative proponents themselves, so the three people who took it down to the elections office and did the work to qualify it, decide to pull it back. There's no choice to modify it, to change it. There's no third party that can intervene and pull it off the ballot. That's the only way it's not going to come before voters. And yeah, they very purposefully wrote it as an initiative to amend the general plan of Humboldt County. And the general plan is kind of the guiding land use planning document for the county. And the reason they did this was, this way, if any other county ordinance, county regulation is in conflict with this initiative, then the onus is on the county then to amend that other code or that other regulation, because the general plan is the guiding document. So it kind of trumps all other county regulations. I mean, I think there's a lot of things that are interesting about this. One of them is that, again, this is really a pretty full-scale overhaul of regulations. And so some of the things it would do, is it would cap cultivation sites at 10,000 square feet. So currently, I think about 60% of the county's farms are 10,000 square feet or below, but that leaves, still a very significant amount. I'm talking about more than 400 farms that are larger than that. It requires that farms be located on a class 4 road, or a category 4 road, which is a certain classification of road that, generally can be assumed to be two lanes and accommodate speeds of 25 to 40 miles an hour. So not highways or anything like that. But when you're talking about some of the more remote areas of Humboldt County, there's a lot of roads that are nowhere near that quality. It also, requires that no one permit holder can hold more than one cultivation permit. And there's lots and lots of changes that it makes. But one of the things is it kind of, it's couched as though this won't affect existing farms, that existing farms would be kind of grandfathered in, for lack of a better term. But unless they tried to expand or kind of change their operations. But the way the initiative is written, that any change to the operations would include the building of a new structure on their property. And so you have a lot of farmers who are saying, look, I'm out of compliance with what this would do, and that's fine if I'm allowed to continue operations, but I have plans to put in a new water storage tank, or I have plans to, put in a solar array or other kind of environmentally friendly, positive improvements to the property. And now they think that if they do that, if they make those improvements, then they would fall under this ordinance and have to reduce their operations to 10,000 square feet or below. So what I'm hearing from the folks in the cannabis industry is just this fear that this will create absolute chaos. And a lot of farms will have to really drastically change operations to come into conformance at a time when, got to remember, wholesale cannabis prices are plummeting. Farms are really having a hard time making ends meet, and a lot aren't. And so there is a real kind of palpable fear in the cannabis industry that this ordinance will lead to, kind of a pretty large spread extinction event for farmers.
And just for context, in your article, you mentioned that, pre-regulatory system, there was an estimated 15,000 farms. Now there's 1,027 active permitted farms, with an estimated another 1,000 that are kind of out of the system, not regulated. So that's a significant shrinkage in the industry already. But then you also mentioned size, which I think is interesting. 739 of those were for pre-existing farms, but when you look at the sizes of them, only about 200 and what is it? I'm looking at the wrong number right now. There was a small amount. Oh, there it is. 189 are a half acre approximately. Acre to a half acre, and then there's only 19 that are more than 1 acre. So really, of that 1,000, we're talking about the vast majority, 80% are kind of under that quarter acre size. But the problem is this. I think I'd like to, I appreciate the background you gave us on what's in it, but now I'm just going to follow up the impact on the county. Part of the new the language said it required reapplication every year, which means that the county would have to process those applications, and also inspection every year. So could you speak to a little bit of how that was received in this by the community?
Yeah, well, by the county, not well. So there's some ambiguity in the initiative as to what exactly this reapplication process would look like, but it does state clearly that they would have to reapply every year, and so theoretically that those applications will have to be processed, and the initiative says that any farm above 3,000 square feet, there will be no waiving of public hearings. And so, the planning director very much is wondering, like, well, is this going to require us to hold a public hearing for every renewal of an application for every farm in Humboldt County above 300,000 square feet? That is enough to tie up the planning commission for probably the entire year, doing nothing but that. Similarly, it requires on-site inspections. And so the county this year was working on a framework to do kind of virtual inspections for farms that were in good compliance, had been inspected previously and found without violations. And they had, with aerial imaging and software and stuff, had built the capacity to do a lot of this virtually. And this initiative would require on-the-ground inspections of every farm every year. So, like you said, there's 1,027 farms in Humboldt County. That is a lot of farms needing to be inspected for a planning staff that is already reporting that it's spread very thin and having a hard time keeping up with its essential functions.
Well, I appreciate your coverage of this, and I know there's going to be a lot more as this evolves. Any last thoughts about what we can expect next in this process?
So we don't really know. The supervisors voted to form an ad hoc committee that's going to meet with the initiative proponents, and the hope there from the supervisors is that they're going to be able to talk the initiative and proponents into pulling the initiative from the ballot, probably by pledging to do some kind of public process that will meet some of their concerns. Whether they're going to be willing to do that is really up to those three people. So we'll have to wait and see.
Well, right on. We'll continue to follow you. Thank you again. We appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, Dave.
Hey, Jen, what's going on the arts and features beat this week?
Dave, I have another fantastic story from Jessica Ashley Silva, she is many things. She is one of the moderators for the Humboldt Foodies Facebook page, and therefore up on all kinds of local food and restaurant information. But also, she is a big lover of edibles and cannabis in food. So I am not ready to take this journey with her. She has made, for this issue, she was really game. She's done all kinds of experiments, but this time she has made wings. And my issue is, this is a great idea if you can stop eating wings at some point, but I'm pretty sure that by looking at the pictures of what she came up with, I kind of feel like I would just end up, as someone I know once put it, on the other side. So I don't know that I have the wing control that a person would need, but she does a really great job of adapting a really basic, simple wing recipe in 2 sauces to using cannabis. And she does this using a cannabis butter, which of course you can make on your own. She used, as Ina Garden says, store-bought is fine. Mm-hmm. And this time she did use store-bought, but she used a couple of Humboldt hot sauces for this one. And Huck's Humboldt Hotties is the brand. So yes, I'm sorry, those are not singles in your area that want to talk to you. They are hot sauces. The Oh So Heavy buffalo and chipotle sauces are the ones she used. And yes, that is Object Heavy related. And so what she did was, there's a certain amount of butter required for each of these sauces. For example, the honey lime one has, the honey lime chipotle has the wings, of course, honey, brown sugar, lime, and hot sauce, garlic, and butter. And so you have to kind of determine how much of the stuff you want in there, how much of a THC charge you want in your food. And so once you've figured out how many milligrams you can roll with, and it's important to know your limitations, ladies and gentlemen, then you can kind of measure out the infused butter and then make up for the rest of the butter in the recipe with regular old butter. Go easy, Humboldt. Start out with the recommended amount and work your way up. Especially because, you end up eating more than you think. If Dollar Wing Night has taught me anything. So anyway, she has this, this great recipe, and she also did it on a whim. She had leftover wings after the Super Bowl because she is not normally the wing person. And in another controversial move, she is making these wings in an air fryer.
Oh.
Cut to Thad's face. So I know Thad has been on the fence about air fryer acquisition for a while. But apparently
I've never had air fryer once, though.
Right? Apparently they make a nice texture. And so she goes with the method of, patting the wings dry, seasoning, and then air frying for something like 15 minutes or something. And it works out. The chili lime ones go in for a second round after they've been sauced so that the sauce gets really sticky. And she does note that you're going to want something to clean up the extra sauce because that cannabis butter ain't cheap, honey. And yeah, she says it's really great. And she had a lot of fun doing this. And there's some really beautiful, tempting photos by, let me make sure I have her name right. It's, I'm sorry, Aoife, I'm missing her name. Sorry, Aoife Maloney. Um, a good Irish name. Happy St. Patrick's Day, everyone. But they're really like, it's a good, solid wing recipe anyway, even if
That's
you're
what I
not
was
going to
gonna.
infuse. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
that's
looking
what I was
very
gonna
good.
ask you.
But then if you are looking to do an infused thing, just make sure that it is marked clearly for your guests. Do not play games with people's wing consumption. And her recipe calls for about 2 pounds of wings to be served to 2 people, which is also another moment where you need to really consult your own personal limitations. I don't know, a pound of wings, Thad? You feel solid? Okay.
Oh yeah.
All right.
You're saying it's too much wings?
No, I don't even, I go and I pick up wings and it's a lot of wings. Remember, some of it's bone. A weedy thing we have is less practical, which is for the cannabis issue for the past several years. I don't even know how many years we've done this. How many years have we had
A 5 or 6 anyway?
5 or 6 years. I always do a list of 100% fake strains that I come with to deal with contemporary anxieties. Mostly anxieties, some of it for fun, but mostly for anxieties. And they are 100%, I would just want to say again, fake. I sort of look at things that are making me and other people I know crazy and come up with strains to combat those crazies. Like we have one that is, it starts out with weed who must not be named, which is to deal with the stress of J.K. Rowling being just an absolute trash fire every day of the week. I don't know. She wrote some books and then came out as horrible. So now we're stuck with it. I've got like $50,000 worth of Harry Potter merchandise in my kid's room. Anyway, and we have that, by the way, that strain is a combination of Turf War, Neville Bong Bottom, and Strawberry Snape. And I hope it helps everyone. But we make all kinds of, crazy strains up. And hilariously, yes, people have been like, so where do I get these? How do we know this really works? And I've been like, yeah, they're all fake, but I have to be careful because crazy weed names are out there. And so I spend time always looking at lists of different strains. And some of the ones I wanted to use were taken.
That's a trip.
I did not know that Juice Box was a strain. But my friends, it's out there. Capri Sun, still available for anybody who's growing. And there are a couple of other things, like there's one that there's a strain that we've invented that tastes like eggs. It's called Scramble On, because eggs are now like more expensive than weed.
Oh no.
Eggs are chicken caviar now. So yeah.
That one's Coupe de Ville and Shell Crack. I think that's really funny.
Yes. There's a lot of weed that's called crack. And I kind of feel like, is that okay? Is that that's one of the naming things, like, they'll take like brand names like Skittles, but it has like a Z in it to get around the copyright, etc. But something like crack, I feel like, is that false advertising?
Right.
Because if I'm not instantly addicted to this, if it doesn't give me the same effects as the CIA dumping hard drugs into poor communities,
Oh, no.
I don't know if I got everything I wanted out of the crack.
So my favorite one that you have, I think, is the Chat OG AI. You don't know the algorithm, so you don't really know what it is.
Yeah, I kind of feel like I spent my entire teen years reading science fiction and like watching movies that terrified me about the coming robot overlords, right? That Sean Young, the replicant, was gonna come in and replace us all. But in fact, now that AI is here, everybody's like fine with it. Now that like the robots are thinking, now we're just like, yeah, but could you write my term paper? Or like, now like they make this really cool art where I look extremely thin, so I'm in.
Right.
So yes, the chat OG is meant to somehow make us feel more cool about the singularity, about robots reaching self-awareness and probably taking over. Although I would hate it, honestly, if I were a self-aware AI. Can you imagine? It would be terrible.
Right.
If you understood and could make value judgments about everything you see, every piece of information in humanity, I feel like I should make weed for the robots.
Yeah. Between the crypto crasher and the parent-teacher conference with a Z, I think the AI would know something was remiss in our culture.
Right, something's up. But anyway, that's where we are, and we'll look forward to another one next year.
Well, cool, Jen. I really appreciate you. The Seriously column, always satirically, so witty. So thank you.
Thank you.
Hopefully people check it out and get a crack up. No pun intended there. Unfortunately, that's about all the time we have this week. But North Coast Journal is available on newsstands now. Pick one up, stay informed. Also available online 24/7, so you can check them out anytime. Thad and Jen, we appreciate you in a big way. So thanks for being here.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks everybody out there for listening, and take care till we connect again next week. Bye, guys.